just to get a couple more places. Matt, would you mind assisting? So yeah, Matt will just pass through some mats and just grab yourself the cushions that you need. And people can just shuffle up to make space for another mat. Do you need a mat down there? You okay? Two more. Oh yeah. Okay, Hannah, would you mind fitting out 2 more spaces? There's 2 more people coming. Is that all right? Thanks. Sandra, could you put the vents on? Because I think we might generate some heat.
Yeah.
So yeah, come on in. They're just setting some spaces up for you. If you just come in, Tom's just setting up some spaces for you. There's some mats, so just take the mat, that's it. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Hannah. This is a really nice problem to have, that there's like more people than there are meditation mats, so it's really nice to see you all here. So yeah, just while everyone's setting up, I'll just welcome you. So really, really warm welcome to the London Buddhist Centre. So yeah, I'm Garavavati. We're going to spend the evening together, and in the first half we're mainly going to meditate, and in the second half I'm going to talk a bit more about meditation, and we're going to be exploring the Metta Bhavana practice this evening. So we're going to do the Metta Bhavana, I'm going to talk a bit about it, and yeah, we'll probably have another go at doing the metta, so we'll probably do 2 meditations. How we're going to start, now that you're all sort of comfortable, is we're going to actually start lying down. So what you could do is, if you're at the front of the room, just come a bit further forwards, just to make a bit more space. And yeah, let's all lie with our heads in the same direction. So lie with your head in the direction of the doors. And if you're on a chair, feel free to lie down or stay sitting on a chair, it's up to you. So you might need to shuffle around a bit to make sure you've got space. There's loads of space. We've done lying down with plenty more people, so just shuffle around as much as you need. And if you're on a chair and you do want to lie down, there are some spaces if you want to come and grab a mat. Oh, and I haven't said welcome online, so really warm welcome if you're joining us on YouTube as well. You can lie down at home. And how we're lying down is in semi-supine. So yeah, Danny's coming to the front, that's good. Do you want a mat, Danny?
No, it's okay.
Sure?
That's okay.
Hey, you're ecstatic.
I'm such a Nancy.
You're such a renunciant, yeah. So yeah, so it's really nice if you have your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor and your hands on your belly. And yeah, if your feet are sliding around, you can take your socks off, and then you'll get like a bit of purchase on the wood. So when you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. I'm just going to turn the lights off. So just allow the weight of your body just to release down. In meditation practice, we're looking to really allow the body to relax and to release. And it's actually much, much easier to let your body relax when you're lying down. So just let the head be heavy on the cushion. And just allow your face to soften. So release your jaw, soften your cheeks. And just imagine all the small muscles around your eyes just relaxing and letting go. So often we're holding an expression on our face, so you're just seeing if you can just let your face completely relax. And just allow your throat to soften. There's no need to talk just now, so your throat can release. The sides of the neck, the back of the neck long. And as you breathe out, just imagine the shoulders just melting down into the ground. And as you breathe in, let your chest be broad and open. And see if you can just feel the whole length of your back, releasing all the muscles down the length of the spine. With each exhale, just imagine your spine lengthening, the spaces between the vertebrae opening up. And can you let the pelvis be really heavy on the ground? And allow your belly to be soft. Not trying to change the breath, but just allowing the belly to release on the inhale so that the belly can rise and expand. See if you can let your thighs also release. So notice if you're gripping through the thighs. If you've got your knees bent, you could bring your knees together with your feet a bit wider if it feels hard to let your thighs relax. So seeing if you can let the thighs be soft. The lower legs, your calf muscles, right down through the ankles, the soles of your feet open. And on the in-breath, you're just allowing your body to be moved by the in-breath. So there's a surrender as you breathe in. You're not having to manipulate the breath or try and breathe more deeply. You're just allowing the belly and the chest to be soft so that they can be open, lifted by the inhale. And just feel the movement of the breath through your body. And And on the exhale, you could notice where you're holding tension in the body and see if you could just imagine it releasing as you breathe out. You might be able to feel a physical release on the exhale. And as the body starts to settle more deeply, just let your mind rest. Nothing to do just now, just letting the mind rest. And just before we bring the lying down to a close, I'm just going to read you a poem. The unseen flower. Compassion is far more than emotion. It is something that springs up in the emptiness, which is when you yourself are not there, so that you do not know anything about it. Nobody, in fact, knows anything about it. If they knew it, it would not be compassion. But they can only smell the scent of the unseen flower that blooms in the heart of the void. Okay, so from here, let's all roll in the same direction. So roll towards the Buddha, so to your right. And just take a few moments just lying on your side. And when you're ready, just use your hands, push yourselves up and come up to sitting. If you're sitting on a chair, you might want to stand up for a little bit just to stretch your legs, because we'll be sitting till about 1:15. So if you want to stand while everyone sort of readjusts, do that. good. Oh, it's good doing that. It's like a reset, isn't it? It's like, feels like we can start now. Yeah. So in a minute we're going to do, well, not in a minute, in a few moments we're going to do the Metta Bhavana practice. But I wanted to read you that poem about the unseen flower. So this beautiful collection of poems is collection of poems written by Urgen Sangharakshita, who founded this movement, this Buddhist movement. And he wrote, well, as you can see, he wrote quite a lot of poems. And yeah, I really love this poem because when I was thinking about what to say about my experience of the Metta Bhavana practice, I can think of lots of examples and lots of stories I can tell you about the sort of potency and power of the practice, and I can talk about my inspiration for the practice. I really love the Metta Bhavana practice, and I can talk about the challenges and the difficulties that I've faced doing the practice as well, and sort of tips and things that I wish I'd learned, when I first started practicing, or things I wish I'd known when I first started practicing. And I want to share some of those things with you this evening. But I also, when I was thinking about it, have this sense of, so I've been doing the Metta Bhavana practice for 10 years, but I had this sense of like, I don't even really know what metta is. I don't know what it is. It's quite mysterious, it's actually quite unknowable, and I don't know what it is. And I've practiced the Metta Bhavana. I've studied quite a lot of texts in quite a lot of depth about the Metta Bhavana, and I've had a sense of it, but I also feel like I don't know what it is. And I think actually that's really good for us to feel like we don't really know what metta is. We don't really know what loving kindness is. It's good to have a sense of the mystery of meditation practice, actually, because of course we want to know where we're going and want to have some conceptual idea of what metta is, which is, when we're learning the practice, it's a state of mind without boundaries, it's the synthesis of reason and emotion, it's the bliss of a warm, expansive heart, it's all of those things, and we don't really know it. It will just sometimes it will just arise, or it will break in, or we'll have a sense of it, but we don't really know it. We can't really grasp hold of it. We can't really completely define it or describe it. And I think that's really exciting. And I think that's the beauty of meditation practice, is that there's something unknowable, and it keeps us going actually in our spiritual lives. It keeps us going in our meditation practice to sort of sit with the mystery of metta, but you could say to sit with the mystery of life. Actually, it's like we don't really know what it is to be alive. We definitely don't know what it is to die. We might have a sense or an idea of that, but we don't really know. So what I wanted to invite you to do in the meditation practice is to just, in a way, it's a bit like cultivating beginner's mind. When you first learned the Metta Bhavana, you didn't know what it was. So everything was quite fresh and everything's quite new. And in a way, we want to be cultivating that approach in everything we do, actually, but particularly in our meditation practice. Like when you sit down, you don't know what's going to happen. So you need to approach your mind and your heart afresh. And you need to really pay attention, because what is happening and what is unfolding, and how are you working with that? How are you being creative with your experience, and what is going on in your experience, and what does it feel like? There's so many things to pay attention to. How is it unfolding? Because it's really easy, isn't it, to just sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to do the Metta Bhavana, and maybe be happy, maybe free from suffering, maybe make progress, and it's not really working, and my back's really tired, and like, that person's really annoying anyway, and I don't feel much emotion, and I find the first stage really hard. It's so easy, isn't it, to get into all of that, but actually you don't have to. It's much, much more exciting. There's something much, much more exciting which can be happening in our experience, which is, in a way, it's like noticing the nature of your mind. Rather than just paying attention to the content, you're noticing the nature of your experience. And that's quite unknowable. So when you sit to practice, see if you can sit with this mystery of your mind and your heart. And I'm going to guide us in, so hopefully I'll give you some more concrete tips on how to do that. So let's set ourselves up and I'll guide us a bit through that. So set yourselves up in your meditation posture. We're going to sit for about 35 minutes. And just try and be as comfortable as you can be in your meditation posture. So if you don't feel that comfortable, just get extra cushions if you need them. Do that now. Good. So when you're ready, you can close your eyes or just take a soft focus looking down towards the ground. And perhaps just notice, just as we start, what is your state of mind? What are you cultivating right now through your thoughts, your emotions? What's already your approach to the practice? Perhaps you've already got an idea about not liking the metta bhavana or liking it. Just notice what you're already bringing to the practice. And have a sense of how it feels through the body. So, where does your body feel tight and tense? Where are you holding through your body? And as you breathe out, just see if you can soften that tension a little. See if you can feel your shoulders just releasing down the back. And can you let your hands just soften? And feel the breath through the belly, through the chest. And seeing if you can stay in touch with this felt sense of your body as we move into the first stage of the practice, the Metta Bhavana. And you can just lay bare whatever arises in the practice, good and bad thoughts alike. Just allow them to arise and just meet them with this loving awareness. And when you notice you're distracted or you're in the grip of thoughts or emotion, See if you can get curious about what that feels like. There'll be a contraction. See if you can be in relationship to that. So bring a kindly awareness to what arises, a curiosity. So as you bring your good friend to mind, just notice your heart's response. And rather than trying to force an idea of metta on top of that, see if you can just be in relationship to the direct response. And from there, just notice any small openings. Or friendly, kindly inclinations, and just pay attention to those.
Seeing if you can just be receptive to the natural quality of metta which already exists within you and outside of you. So this loving kindness is natural. Letting go of the good friend and bringing to mind a neutral person. And again, seeing if you can take an interest in the feelings, the thoughts, or the lack of feeling that arises in response to the neutral person. And then you can use your imagination to imagine their life, their hopes, their fears. And just see if a point of connection arises between you. Again, try not to cut off what arises in your experience. So it might be an apathy or an aversion or a tiredness. See if you can bring it into this sphere of loving awareness. You don't need to take it too personally or too seriously. And whatever's arising in your experience will have arisen in this neutral person's experience, so you can use it as a point of connection, your shared humanity. And now bringing to mind a difficult person. And what instantly arises might be aversion, it might be resistance. But see if you can really embrace that, even be in relationship to that. And as you stay in a loving relationship to that, there might be something beyond that. we move into the last stage of the practice, just look for any quality of expansiveness through your body, your mind, your heart. Just turning your mind further outwards towards all beings. And don't be put off by any feelings of confusion or resistance or maybe overwhelm. You can just include that and expand around it. And now stay in your meditation posture, but just release your efforts to meditate. Just sitting. the unseen flower. Compassion is far more than emotion. It is something that springs up in the emptiness, which is when you yourself are not there, so that you do not know anything about it. Nobody, in fact, knows anything about it. If they knew it, it would not be compassion. But they can only smell the scent of the unseen flower that blooms in the heart of the void. Okay, so we're going to have a little tea break now, and then we'll come back in the second half. I'm going to say a bit more about the Metta Bhavana, and we'll have another go at the practice before the end of the evening. Let's just head out when you're ready. talk for a bit, so it's probably a good idea to sit out of your meditation posture. Can you hear me all right at the back? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit more about metta, and I wanted to talk a bit more about the sort of mystery of metta, and also the sort of practical application of metta in our everyday lives, which I feel like I've really experienced and put into practice and seen kind of amazing results. So I'm going to tell you a few stories. I'll see how much time we've got, how many stories I can tell you. And we will have a chance to meditate again before the evening's out. So the first story I wanted to tell you is a story that it's like a third-hand story. I don't know if there's some kind of like storyteller's special word for that, but I live with a woman called Dharmadina who used to live, she's been ordained for about 50 years. She's been meditating for, must be 55 years. Anyway, she's a very wise woman, and she's had a lot of experience. And she used to live at a women's retreat centre in Wales, which is still sort of going. And it's where when a woman asks to be ordained, you go there to train in ordination. So you're ordained when you have one of these white cases on. So I'm ordained. And part of that process is you do these training retreats at this retreat centre. So the women that live and work at that retreat centre are quite remarkable women, in my opinion. And anyway, 4 of them were on their way to somewhere. They were travelling somewhere, and they were in a traffic jam on a motorway. And ahead of them, they could see there'd been a car crash. And apparently it was like a really big, what do they call it when it's all like jammed up? Gridlock, something like that. Yeah, a pile up. Yeah, something like that. So you can imagine that. So it's quite boring, isn't it? I mean, I don't know about you, but when I hate having to wait for anything. But traffic is so boring, isn't it? So they knew they were going to be there for a long time. So they had a very sort of creative response, and they said, "Oh well, why don't we do the Metta Bhavana for the people in that car crash?" Which is just in and of itself, I find really inspiring that they'd have that thought. I mean, you'd kind of expect it, wouldn't you? But of a Buddhist. But I just find that really inspiring. So, there's loads I could say already from that. So just maybe one practical application of metta is that it's something to do. It's something to do in a crisis, but it's also something to do if you're bored or you're waiting. And I really love that about it. It's mysterious, and it's sort of cosmic, and it's really practical. You can do it right now when you're listening to me. You can do it anywhere. You can turn your mind towards beneficial activity. You can turn your mind towards kindness. You can bear someone in mind. You can do that anywhere, anytime. So they remembered that they could do that, and then as well as remembering it, they had the energy and the presence of mind to do that together. And doing it together is so much more potent than doing it on your own. There's a potency, isn't there, in deciding to do something collectively. So they're in this car, there's 4 of them, and they do the Metta Bhavana. And then, I don't know what happens, I guess at some point the traffic clears, they go on their way. And then months and months and months later, they get a phone call from someone who's tracked them down at the retreat centre. And she says that she was in a car crash. She had an out-of-body experience where she floated up out of the car, and she could see something beautiful sort of resonating from the car where the 4 order members were. And the woman who was in the car crash worked for the DVLA? Are they the drivers? She worked for the DVLA, so she had like a really good memory for license plates. And in her out-of-body experience, she saw the license plate and she remembered it when she woke up. I imagine probably in a hospital. She remembered the license plate. And I don't know, maybe there must be some kind of way of searching license plates. She somehow tracked it down that the car was registered to the retreat centre. And she phoned them because she wanted to know what they were doing in the car, because it was what she saw was beautiful. I can't really remember the details of if she described what she saw, all I can remember from the story is that something was happening and she wanted to know what it was. So that's the story. And it's a little bit wacky, isn't it? But I love it. I just think it's an amazing story, because actually, even if that woman had never tracked them down and told them that she had seen something beautiful, coming out of the car, I think it's an amazing story anyway, that people would just decide to do that in a traffic jam, actually, and decide to do that in the face of suffering. But the fact that I don't know, imagine the impact it must have had on that woman for her to like remember that when she regained consciousness, and not only to remember it, but to actually make the effort to get in touch with them. There's so many steps to that, isn't there, which are quite remarkable. So when I hear that story, I feel like it just gives me so much faith in the practice. And I think the reason it gives me faith in the practice is because I've also had a sense that this practice is, I don't know, I want to use the word magical, but I don't mean magical in the sort of like woo-woo sense. I do think it's, I don't quite know what the right word is. It surprises me. It does feel a bit magic, actually, and I don't know how it works, maybe a bit like magic. But from my own experience, when I first started doing this practice, I was quite consistent, actually, when I started coming to the Buddhist Centre, which is almost exactly 10 years ago, actually. I came and I went on a retreat. I came in September and I went on a retreat in December. And when I got back from that retreat, I just decided that I was going to meditate every day. And I sort of did, actually. And I think the retreat helped me to do that. And so I do the mindfulness of breathing one day and the metta bhavana the other day, which is what was like you're sort of told to do at the Buddhist Centre. So I just did what I was told. And I think I kept doing it consistently, and I've kept doing meditation consistently because I've just seen really tangible results. And I think actually it is really applicable. Like, you do the metta bhavana and you put 4 people in each stage, and they're people who are in your life. And then as you do that consistently, you can literally just see those relationships changing. And there was a woman that I used to work with. I used to work in this hospital, and I worked in an occupational therapy department, and I employed sort of as an artist, basically, to work with patients to deliver art programs. And it was actually a really demanding job, like emotionally demanding job, and a busy job. But I guess how it looked to lots of other people in the hospital was that I had this really nice job where I just, got to make art with people, and it was really nice. And, putting on exhibitions and hanging work and framing work was like part of my job. And meanwhile, other people are doing, sort of like quite, there's some quite really horrible jobs, aren't there, in hospitals? Anyway, so there's a woman who was like in charge of finance, and we were probably just quite different characters. And so there wasn't like a natural bond between us. And I just used to find her really difficult. And I can't remember why, but she always used to have to come and speak to me about stuff, probably about budgets and things like that. And I just used to find her really, really difficult. And I can remember just putting her in the 4th stage of my metta bhavana for about 6 months. When you like discover a new method and you're like, okay, I am going to do this. Like, I'm going to metta bhavana you and see what happens. And it was amazing. Like, one time, it was amazing because what must have been happening in retrospect, although I wasn't aware of it at the time, was the way that I related to her and the way it must have started changing. So I must have been a bit more open, a bit warmer to her, sort of relating to her a bit to her more as a human rather than as this like mean person who was annoying. And then she must have changed in relationship to me changing. But of course, how I experienced it was that like she just started to become really nice and less annoying. And then she'd like come into the art room and we'd have these chats, and she'd tell me how actually she wasn't really very happy in her job and she found it really hard, and my job looked really nice. And so it's quite interesting how basically this relationship developed between us. And I stopped experiencing her as a difficult person, and I started to have like a natural empathy And and I became quite fond of her. I can't actually remember her name now, so maybe not that fond, but like I have like a warm, now when I think of her, what comes into my sort of being is something warm. Whereas at the start it was, just those people, there's some people that you just have a natural aversion to and you're like, oh no, I don't. It's just natural, everyone will have them. We will all have the fourth person people. And it really, really transformed that relationship. And in a way, in the Metta Bhavana, sort of from a bigger perspective, it doesn't really matter who you're putting in those stages. In a way, the practice is bigger than you. It's bigger than me and my little dislikes. Like the practice is about moving from a mind of hatred to a mind of love, and not in a sort of woo-woo hippie kind of let's love everyone kind of way. It's in a much more, in a way, it's much more pragmatic. It's much more sort of natural in the sense that I don't know how to articulate what I'm trying to articulate. In a way, the purpose of the Metta Bhavana practice is to see if you can align your mind more with reality, rather than like just make your relationships really good and try not and have those annoying people at work. Because in reality, that woman is multifaceted, and in reality, I have a really subjective experience of her, and that's not who she is. And in reality, unfortunately, probably for the best, really, the world doesn't revolve around me and who I like and who I don't like, and I can't sort of partition it off anyway. So I have this idea still, unfortunately, that if I just create a wall of aversion to someone, then somehow it will protect me from the discomfort of being in relationship with someone or something I don't like. And we must all do that, because in a way that's what we do in an aversive state of mind, is we try and push it away, and maybe even try and like pile up all the reasons why we don't want something or we don't like something in an attempt to defend ourselves from it. It feels like protection, like hatred. To me anyway, I'm assuming it's the same for lots of other people, feels like a protective wall, and I try and like get away from what I don't like. But actually, a sort of counter habit is to come into a direct relationship, maybe not necessarily with what you're feeling aversive to, because there are situations where that's not where that's a correct response to move away from something dangerous. But we can still be in a direct relationship with our mind's response and our emotional response to that. And you can embrace that. And not only can you embrace it, you can see that as an opportunity for insight. You can see that as an opportunity for love. So just like in that car, in the traffic jam, there was an opportunity for frustration. There was an opportunity for anxiety. There was an opportunity just to get really hot and bothered. There was an opportunity for lots and lots of negative mental states to unfold for those women. But they chose just to sit and think of that person who was suffering and who might have been dying. And so from that situation, they created something beautiful just with their minds and their hearts. And they could have sat in that car and created something really ugly with their minds and their hearts, or could have created not very much. But instead, they created something beautiful. And what the Metta Bhavana is saying is that that's sort of a possibility for all of us in every moment. So we sit to do the Metta Bhavana in a formal way. I don't know how often you do the Metta Bhavana, but you'll sit to do the Metta Bhavana in a formal way, maybe every other day, maybe every so often. But it's like a symbol or a metaphor for your whole life. For every mind moment, it can be a possibility to be having a loving approach to yourself and a loving approach to others. And then that's an insight practice, because that will start to expand your mind and your heart beyond a limited sense of yourself and sort of infinitely. And I think that's why in the poem, going back to the poem, I think that's why Sangharakshita is saying that that compassion, well, he's saying compassion is more than emotion. So it's not just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's not just liking someone. He's saying it's something that springs up in the emptiness when you are not there. And it's not you in the literal sense, but it's you in the sense of, or me in the sense of, I don't know how to say it. Like me, mind made me and all that I'm attached to, me and all my sort of stuff. And through the metta bhavana, that can start to loosen, and something sort of beyond me can sort of body forth through me. And that's the sort of heart of the void. That's what blooms in the heart of the void. And in a way, that points towards the Buddhist concept of shunyata, this concept of emptiness and luminosity. So one way to think about shunyata, one way to think about this concept of emptiness is that actually, rather than a void, is to think of something which is pregnant with opportunity, a sort of space where nothing, and let me try and get this right, nothing is not possible. There's nothing that's not possible. So anything can happen. And that's why your life and your meditation practice is a mystery, because anything is possible to arise. We don't really know, well, maybe in like a really small way for me, if I'm speaking like from my own experience of my everyday life, what I don't know is quite often I don't know what's on the other side of boredom, because I don't really ever give myself much time to get bored. I'm constantly like doing stuff or feeding my mind. So I don't really necessarily know what happens in spaces because I don't allow for them. And you might be the same. Like, do you ever just sit and just see what arises? Does anyone ever do that? Do you do that? What happens?
I did it this morning.
Did you?
Yeah. I'm pretty strict with getting up. But I just didn't feel like it this morning, so I just kind of sat there. And nothing really arised.
And how was it?
It was I was feeling a bit down, so I kind of thought, do you know what, I'm just gonna sink right down, and from that maybe I'll spring back up. And I did. I felt a lot better for just allowing myself to sink.
Yeah, and I think that's really wise actually, because it makes me think about the metta bhavana practice, where it's really easy to try and like plaster over your experience with like a plaster of love. You know, like you could have felt a bit down and been like, okay, I'm going to bring a positive attitude to my experience, and it's not really very genuine, is it? You're not really experiencing the sort of heights and depths of the human condition. So it shows faith to be able to experience that, and then you see how it goes up and down, doesn't it, our experience? Yeah. Yeah, I guess in a way it's like having the confidence and the courage and the faith actually to just be with our experience as it unfolds, which sounds like you did have. Yeah. And then there is a beauty in that. I mean, I say I don't know boredom, I do know boredom, because I've been on solitary retreat where there's like, it's like inescapable. So that's where I have to really face my deep restlessness. And I personally find it quite excruciating to just try and let things just unfold. And there is a richness and a sort of beauty there. And I think we can also find that in our meditation practice. I do think meditation practice is different to just doing nothing though, because in meditation we are doing something. it is active. And there's an objective, isn't there, when you sit to meditate? Even if you're doing nothing, you're still in a way doing something which is vaguely productive. Even if your meditation's really off, you still try to do something. So what I'd really recommend for all of us is to see if you can just do nothing, even if it's just for 10 minutes, and bring it into your week, bring it into your day, because I do think that is quite a radical and quite a challenging advanced practice to just sit and do nothing. And there's some Buddhist teachers in this tradition who spend like a whole evening doing nothing. Apparently, like this one guy puts it in his Google Calendar, and then people will be like, "Do you want to meet up on Tuesday night?" He's like, "No, sorry, I'm doing nothing." And they're like, "Yeah, do you want to meet up?" He's like, "No, I'm doing nothing." So I think that's really radical in our day and age. I do think that is really radical, isn't it? To just do nothing. Yeah. So I'm impressed with your practice. And you know, there's like two sides, and it's really good to cultivate metta, you know. It is really good to make effort. It is really good to make effort. It is really good to cultivate positive mental states, skillful mental states. It's really good to try and eradicate unskillful mental states and to maintain our positive mental state. So it's about learning the type of effort that we need, and at different times in our lives, at different times in our day, at different times in the course of meditation practice, we'll need to be applying the right type of effort. And that's why we need to be really alive to our experience all the time as it unfolds, because there's not going to be one magic formula which you can just apply to every situation. Our life will unfold differently, and there's so many conditions, isn't there, which are constantly changing. So we need to be really responsive and creative with what arises. Yeah. So I have got another story to tell you, but I just wondered if there's any questions or any thoughts on what I've said so far. Yeah.
When you're doing a metta practice, do you have to go through all the stages, or can you just pick one if you don't have that much time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the structure of the meditation practice is really important. Is the last stage of the practice is the most important stage. So if you only have time for 2 stages, pick one stage, but always do the last stage, because this last stage of the practice of expanding out to recall and remember all beings is really, really important. I think it's particularly important for us, actually, and like given the way most of us live our lives and our cultural conditioning, I think it's really important to remember all beings. So I would say that if you only had time for 2 stages, pick one of the other stages and do that stage as well. Yeah, and just if you are going to do that, then just make sure that you are doing the full practice regularly as well. So I think it would be a real shame to get into a habit of never doing the full practice. But I think it's better to do the practice a little bit than not at all.
Yeah, I just meant because sometimes I just like have a 10-minute train ride or something, and then might as well just meditate.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But that can be like on top of your daily meditation practice. Yeah, I'd really recommend like opportunistic metta bombing of your mind and heart. Yeah, it's a really nice thing to do. Yeah, and I think if you're just doing it like that, then in a way, like if you're doing it on the train, and even with the people in your carriage, in a way that is like the 5th stage of the practice, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering, with the Metta Bhavana, we wish happiness to ourselves, to others. And lately I'm having a bit of a struggle with the concept of happiness. And I actually, because it's something that I end up striving for, and like sometimes that gets a bit ill. And I kind of wish for myself being contented rather than being happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just wanted to like bring it to the table and see what you think.
Yeah, I think it's fine in a way to, if something is resonating for you, a more, like if something's capturing your mind and your heart, like if contentment seems to resonate with you more than happiness, I think it's fine to go from happiness to contentment, because in a way the happiness that we're wishing upon someone is the happiness of having a really satisfied, content mind and heart, so they're not so far apart. So I think it's fine to go for that. And I think in general, if you're stumbling, if something's proving a block for you, like maybe in the phrases, then it's okay to find a creative way around that. Yeah, I think that's quite wise, really. Otherwise, you end up just trying to push through with something because you think it's the right way to do it. It's like this. There's like the sort of rock. There's like the rock of holding to a practice too literally, and then there's the whirlpool of like being really vague and going a bit off-piste. So we want to try and make sure we're sort of just balancing those two things. But yeah, the jump from happiness to contentment is quite small and is similar. It's got a similar sort of spirit and principle. So I think that's good. Yeah. Yeah, Erin.
There's two things, but I think they're related. At the moment when I do the Metta Bhavana, I really struggle because I can't get out of my own head and my own worries. So I feel very inauthentic focusing on other people because they disappear very quickly. And then the other thing is oftentimes when that happens, I stop trying to be proactive in the well-wishing and just try and have a kind of experience the reaction to those people or to myself. And so I guess the question is, how do you need to balance that, or is it okay just to kind of sit with whatever's going on and try and bring the people up and see what happens?
So are you saying that when you, at the moment when you're practicing and you go beyond the first stage of the practice, so you say you bring a good friend to mind, it's hard to focus on them because what's happening in your experience in relation to your life is quite strong and it's coming up a lot.
My mind is just like scattered. And so when I think of them, it doesn't feel very genuine. Like I might have an initial warm, like, oh, that I really care about that person, but then it goes. So I almost feel like, why should I bother even trying to do it?
What would you do instead?
Mindfulness of breathing.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's great. Do you find the Metta Bhavana harder than the mindfulness practice? Yeah.
But if I do it frequently, like if I'm on retreat, then I really enjoy it.
Okay. So do you feel like, because I'm just asking you a few questions. So do you feel like because you've got a lot going on and your mind's really busy, for you, what you need is like the mindfulness practice because that will help your mind to center? Is that the sort of rationale?
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. So you feel like what you don't need is, you don't need the Metta Bhavana because it's too busy and thinking of all these other people, and what you want is the mindfulness of breathing.
Yeah. Which is why sometimes I guess I just try and sit with each stage rather than proactively wishing them well. Yeah. And just see what it feels like to think about them and their lives.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the balance is between being reactive and...
Yeah. It's really, really interesting. It's quite interesting. I think what's interesting for me is like the view that's underneath it, which is like of what you need or what you want. Yeah, in terms of the meditation, because yeah, I just think it would be interesting to question that in a way. Or just to explore that a bit more, like what sort of mindset are you bringing to the practice in terms of what you want and what you need. Because if your mind's really scattered, you can still do the metta bhavana. It's just that you're doing the metta bhavana with a scattered mind. And you could make, as a practical tip, you could make the practice a bit more body-based. So then that might help you to feel more grounded in your body rather than, because does it get a bit heady with the different phrases? Yeah, other people are nodding. So so you can make the metta bhavana more body-based. But I think what also helps me to like get out of my head is to take in other people. And it's doing that in a sort of in an imaginative sense. I don't know if you've ever had it when you're like, I don't know if anyone has this in the morning. Sometimes I find mornings, I like the mornings, but sometimes I find them really hard because it's where I'm thinking everything I need to do and and then once I leave the house and I encounter other people, I'm like, oh, why was I so worried about that? There's a whole world out here. It's not just me. So the metta bhavana is like that opportunity. Yeah. But I think it's good to go partly with your intuition, which is to sort of what are you looking for? What are you longing for out of the mindfulness of breathing, and bring those qualities into your metta practice. So I imagine what you might be looking for is a more direct physical experience, because that's what people get through focusing on the breath. So you could bring that into the metta practice, really feel your body, feel the feeling of whatever's arising for you. If it's a scattered mind, that will have a physical counterpart. Use that as a point of connection for the people that you're bringing to mind, because everyone knows what it's like to be really, really busy and to not want to be doing something. So whatever's arising for you, use that as a point of connection for the person, so that you're not denying your experience. You're in relationship with your experience, but you're also bringing in another person into your heart. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, good luck. Okay, so one more question or comment maybe, if there is one. Yeah.
Should you ever mix the two? Because sometimes I find the same. I find the mindfulness of breathing I respond to a lot quicker and start breathing deeper and experiencing more. And when I do the metta bhavana, I don't have that physical experience. So sometimes I cheat and I start doing the mindfulness of breathing. I'll do a couple of rounds, counting to 10, and start incorporating the people into it.
Interesting, yeah.
Because but I don't know whether I should be doing that or not. It's a bit eager, isn't it? It's a bit like, I don't know, I thought maybe I shouldn't do it. Just be a bit more patient.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? I'm just thinking of like a yoga teacher I used to go to, where he'd do these different types of yoga poses, and he'd say, don't worry, we won't tell the yoga police that we're doing something unorthodox. Well, what do I think about that? I think, like I said, I think it's good not to take the practices too literally. So there's a structure which is there for a reason, but also you need to allow for creativity within that structure. Otherwise, everything just gets dry. So you need to have an element of creativity, and it sounds like you are being creative and seeing maybe what you need is a sense of grounding, a sense of connection to the body.
Yeah.
And that comes through the breath for you.
Yeah, I mean, I could, I just kind of got the answer actually. I just kind of, within myself, heard you shouldn't mix the two. So I'll probably just try and exercise a bit more patience, and maybe the breath will start coming. Something else will probably happen if I just do the metta bhavana.
Yeah.
I'm just being impatient actually.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, you can see how you get on. Yeah. Oh, well, that's good. Well, I'm glad you answered your own question. That makes my job easier. yeah, let's meditate. I don't think we need any more talking. So let's just end by meditating together again. So I'll just lead us through a little metta, 10 minutes of something metta. We won't do the formal practice. So just set yourselves up. Yeah, just something to sort of take with you is that metta is natural. It is a natural response, and we experience the sort of seeds of metta, of loving kindness, all the time actually in our lives. So we don't need to sort of drag it out of the depths of our hearts or try and sort of manufacture it. It's natural. So just start off by just letting your body just settle. Just have a sense of the weight releasing down through your sit bones and your legs. And your spine rising up. And just feel the breath through the body. And start to gather more of your awareness down into your belly. And just feeling the breath in the belly. And feeling the breath across your chest. And see if you can feel the connection between the belly and the chest. And just allow your belly to be soft. And with the breath, see if you can feel the connection between the belly and the heart. And a bit like feeling around in the dark. See if you can touch into the heart center with the breath. it's as if you could breathe a kindly awareness to the heart. And allow your face to express your heart. And just staying in touch with the heart, staying in touch with your breath and that felt sense of your body. Just start to bring to mind the people that you might see as you travel home. Just allowing your mind and your heart just to expand a little, just to include all the beings, seen and unseen, that you'll pass by or encounter. And it's like a transference of merit. Anything that you've benefited from this evening, just allowing it to flow out into the world. There's nothing for you to hold on to. And seeing if you can stay in touch with the heart center, with the breath, as you just let your sphere of concern widen and widen. Just let go of clinging to yourself. Now just let go completely even of the meditation, just sit. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the evening. Really nice to practice with you and see you all this evening, and thanks for joining us online as well. Just leave quietly when you're ready. You can put your mats and cushions back to the sides of the room, and look forward to hopefully seeing you next week, and get home safe.